So without waiting too much, let's sort of kick start. And Helena, I wonder whether you want to kick us off? Just saying a bit more about why we're doing this, maybe.
Yes, so first of all, those I haven't met, I'm Helena. I live in Stockholm, where I practice as a Gestalt therapist, and I'm part of the leadership team in Relational change. And my special interest is how we're working with movement in therapy. And now when we're constricted to this medium, I'm also interested in how we can do this also through the screen. I'm seeing myself.
You are seeing yourself, because I'm trying to be very clever here, Helena, and spotlight you so that people can actually see you, because there's so many of us. Is that all right for you?
Yes, that's just part of what it is like to work with this medium, I think, because it's also sometimes really disturbing of seeing myself and having to respond to that. Yeah. And the interest, like as a background for me and Mac when we started to talk about doing this, was to hear that this is a new way of working for many, and we have some experience before in working online and on Skype or Zoom, and thought that we could have things to contribute with and how to, and that could be inspiring for others as well. Because what is also really my interest in this is to learn together, because it is new for most of us. And how can we come together and explore and finding ways that we can then take back to our own practice. Brilliant. And what I often hear from colleagues and supervisees is how tiring it can be to work in this way and work online. And what I think is helping me is to really acknowledge that this is very different. This is something different than working when I meet people face to face. And with that comes also for me a sense of loss, that I really miss the other way of working and try to do the best within this medium. But that it is different. So I think that is what I'd like to say as a start.
Sounds good. Thank you. So for me, I think some of you know me. I'm Marianne Chidiac, and I live in the UK. Again, I'm a Gestalt psychotherapist. I'm an organizational practitioner, and I'm really aware that today we have some organizational, mix of people that are joining us, coaches, as well as organizational practitioners of different variety, and therapists, of course. So why this webinar? I guess first I did one about a month ago that some of you might have attended. And it's because I was hearing a lot from colleagues and supervisees about, questions about how to work in this way, which has taken us all by surprise with the lockdowns. And at first, the challenges I feel were centered around the new technology and getting to grips with how to actually do that. But as time moved on, what I heard more from colleagues are challenges in feeling really effective as practitioners. When we connect with our clients virtually. And I think many of us felt quite disempowered, or perhaps maybe not as good online. I heard things like, I'm not sure I'm really doing good therapy or coaching, and I'm not feeling as connected with my clients. So the challenge seemed to be especially for practitioners who worked in an embodied way, how to bring all of ourselves, our usual tools and ways of being with our clients, without primarily feeling so exhausted. And I think I'd like to return to that. So I think Helena and I just brought our minds together, not our bodies, unfortunately, with this lockdown. And so here we are. Mm-hmm. So I think what I want to sort of start off is just saying that I'm sure lots of you have spent a lot of time in front of a screen, and it has been exhausting for many of us. Not just because we're getting used to a new way of working, which requires a certain, I guess, rewiring of our brain and learning new skills and getting to grips with the technology, but also because we're missing, I feel, something fundamental to how we work, a felt sense, an embodied sense of the other person. And probably many of us are working quite hard to make up for it. So if you work naturally with your client's movement, your gestures, the postures, the body-to-body conversation, then I think meeting online presents, very specific challenges. And I think the most obvious one is, how do I stay present in myself when a lot of my attention is focused on the screen or on the technology, or trying to read perhaps the subtle nuances on my client's face? But also how to invite our clients to feel themselves in this new technology and our connection. A core challenges that perhaps make us work hard at times is a sense that perhaps the therapeutic alliance is more unfocused or weakened, and that our clients are struggling to be as introspective or focused as they usually are in our consulting rooms. And of course, in face-to-face therapy, we all know how to create a holding or a containing setting for the work to take place. And online, it isn't so easy. We can't read as much of the implicit signals, the embodied signals to which we're used to respond. And for the obvious reasons, we notice less of the other person's phenomenological experience. And that makes us less responsive and so less present. So what we're going to do, in the time we have today, is to present you with a view of presence and embodiment, and then explore with you through a series of short experiments the different aspects of this presence and how it might manifest online, which hopefully, we hope will give you a sense of how to be more embodied and creative. And I think it's important to remember that in Gestalt, every experiment starts with having really a sense of our embodied selves. I'm going to briefly present how in relational change we talk about the notion of presence. And there might be a small repetition of material that I covered in the first of these sessions about a month ago. But in order for everyone to be on the same page, I think it's worth going through this very briefly. Let's just think, all of us, about presence for a moment, and maybe bring to mind an example of you being at your most present, whether it's in a work context or a personal context. Just try to remember what it felt like. What enabled that moment? What was the impact on others? What were you aware of? Just sort of take a moment to bring that memory of that time back. And I guess as I do that, what comes up to me is a walk in the woods last weekend with my husband, and I could feel myself step in the leaves. I could feel myself being attentive to the birds, and at the moment, there are much fewer planes, so there was this type of silence, a different quality of silence in walking alongside, taking in the smells, feeling the freedom of being out. And even though my husband and I weren't talking, we felt a very strong connection. So in being present, I feel myself in flow. I have a connection with the others and also my environment. And we often find these characteristics of presence. And so in relational change, what we think of presence as the interlocking of three aspects of awareness. And what I'm going to do now is share my screen just to take you to this, just one slide. In the concept of presence, we look at that. For us, presence is an awareness of the self and other and situation. And the awareness, by self, we mean our emotions, our thoughts, our bodies. It's a fundamental part of a practitioner when we use our countertransference to inform our interventions. With other, I mean, the phenomenological experience of my client, primarily their movement, their facial expression, their voice fluctuation. And finally, I think the situation, and by that I mean at its most basic level, I mean the physical space in which we are immersed. And we know from Gestalt that we self in context, and so we're also dependent on our context. And are we in our normal practice room, or are we in our bedroom, or are we on our desk? And of course, our presence will be impacted by that. And of course, the presence of our clients as well. And when Sally Damen-Vaughan and myself wrote about presence in this way, we defined it as an energetic availability and a fluid responsiveness. And this applies to these three zones. You know, how can I be energetically available and fluidly responsive to myself, to other, and the situation? And of course, this awareness doesn't need to be in equal measure in each one of these lenses, but what feels important is not to exclude any of these lenses. We also talk about ethical presence, but I will park that for the moment because it's less relevant to what we're talking now. But thinking of being online, you can immediately see the impact, if you like, of most of us of losing an aspect of feeling present in these three lenses, or energetically available and fluidly responsive to ourselves, to other, and our situations. So I'm just gonna stop here for a second and just see if there's any other comments on this. So what I'd like us to do is start with focusing on the situation lens as an experiment. Why is an awareness of situation so important to being present? And I guess a component of our experience as embodied beings is being able to situate ourselves in space and time. And in fact, interestingly enough, we've learned this from a research into virtual reality, into gaming. So we feel ourselves fully in our avatar, in our game. And we know that simple, and the researchers show that simple visual feedback isn't enough, but we need more of our sensory experiences, feeling our movement, our position with respect to our context or to others. And I think we can learn from this. You know, I think Maurice Merleau-Ponty, which is a French philosopher, talks about our embodied subjectivity. And he says, you know, we're not just disembodied mind, but we're, you know, living human beings. We resonate, we reverberate with the world around us. And the implicit messages and signals we get from others and from our environment are important because they support and inform our responses. So you know, I love how he talks sometimes about visiting a museum and saying, you know, we get to grips with a painting that we're looking at by moving ourselves with respect to it. That we know that if we get too close, we see too much detail, but if we get too, we see a lot of detail, but we lose a sense of the whole. So of course, online, we can't be physically in the same room, but I think we can heighten our awareness of the context in which we both sit. And this makes us more present to each other. So my suggestion is that we experiment a bit with this, if that's possible, if that's okay with everyone. And yes, sorry, say that again, Helena.
No, just to what you said, to add that in heighten our awareness of the situation or of the room where the other is. It's also giving us a sense of depth.
Absolutely.
So being so flat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That'd be great to sort of experiment with this. So now we're going to do this in breakout rooms. If everyone is aware, I don't know if everyone is aware what a breakout room is. It's an opportunity for you to go and meet another person out, rather than be how many, you know, 78 of us online, and just do a small experiment. So and the experiment will be to inquire into each other's physical spaces and situation. Okay, so the invitation is to notice what happens to our presence as we inquire into it, and share aspects of our situation, as well as ask the other person about their space and situation. So you'll be meeting someone you don't know, and perhaps just have a brief time to exchange first names, but please go with it. And if you can't or want to come out of your breakout room, you will find that capacity, and then you'll come back to the larger group. My suggestion is to do this for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then have a 5 minutes of debrief. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and just show you one slide with the instructions. Let me do this again. Okay. Right, I think we're all back. And so welcome back, everyone. So my suggestion is to just hear a few voices. You know, how was that for you? What did you feel it was like in attempting to create that sort of shared space between you and the other person? If you want to speak, just put your hand up and we'll try to unmute you.
Shall I speak, Mac?
Oh yes, go on. And then there's Liz there. Thank you.
It very much helped me knowing which location in the world my partner was.
Yeah.
She was in Spain. I suddenly had a picture of Spain, and as we described our rooms,
Yes.
I had a sense of her location, which helped me not to be in my body.
Lovely. Thank you.
But also, there was an issue about how much of her I saw, because I saw her head and shoulders, and then we moved backwards and saw each other's bodies, which made a big difference to me.
Lovely. Lovely. That sounds really great. Thank you. So Liz, I had you. Thank you, Phil. I think Liz, you wanted to say something. I'm trying to find you back on my screen. Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I noticed how helpful it was to connect by seeing the actual around her room.
Right.
That made such a big difference. My whole body relaxed and I felt safer in a way because
Yes.
I had a sense of more a sense of something. And then also
Yes.
when she told me about how she was feeling, feeling connected in the chair and what was happening with her breathing, I also felt, this is so much better.
Yes.
You're real.
You're real. Exactly. You're there. You're real. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah. And you're with me. Great.
Yeah.
We're in the same space, so to speak. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Liz.
Me?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I noticed it is a bit private to invite someone in your home the way you normally don't do with clients, and how that in the beginning was a little tense. But what was also very interesting was to explore the eye contact, because if you look at the picture, it's different from if you look into the camera. And normally when you talk to someone, you look at the person and not into the camera, and that makes we experimented a bit with that, and that was it was a good awareness.
Yes, wonderful. Vivica, that feels really important what you've just said, and we've covered it about a month ago, is that how important it is to put the image of the other person as close as possible to the camera. So actually when you look at them, there isn't a big discrepancy between where they are and where your camera is. Otherwise it is disconcerting. But thank you for that. Yeah, it's a great reminder.
I think you also named that of the privacy in suddenly inviting someone to my home and being invited to someone else's place, and how there is an other quality of intimacy that could also be a possibility in this context, where I've, for example, heard clients say that they feel that they're able to share things differently here because they have another kind of support being in their homes, which can then be interesting when we meet again. Face to face. How could I expose myself differently with you when there was a distance?
Lovely. Shall we hear from one more, Bob? Let's see. Yeah.
Yes, I think, we were looking at how we felt about our backdrops and how we experienced each other's backdrops. And although it was talking about the backdrops, we were sharing our feelings about that, and it felt quite personal and intimate as we were talking about being in each other's homes. And so it felt like a a very interesting transition, a connection.
Yes.
And also for me, people were seeing things in my backdrop that I wasn't aware were there.
Yes.
I wouldn't have made that
Yes.
observation.
Yes.
So it was, but it was personal,
Yes.
although we were catching.
Yes.
What
But
was
how
present.
how important it is, I guess, for our clients to have that moment of saying, what are they seeing? What are they seeing about us that perhaps they wouldn't be seeing normally if they were in our practice room or come to us or we do it the face-to-face? Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feels really important. So in a way, this phenomenological inquiry into our joint space builds a common ground. It starts building a bit of the container of the therapy to take place. Is it safe? Are you with me? Are you distracted? Are you looking at the window that's on your left? Or, you know, when you look away on your right, what are you looking at? And are you available to me? So, you know, if you're in the same room, in which you see them normally, that's a real bonus, you know, because they're used to having a sense of you in that space. There's an added sense of familiarity, but it's often not the case. I mean, I don't see my clients here, and so you know, I need to sort of negotiate it a bit what it's like for them and what they can see. And of course, you know, even if you see them in your normal space, they can't see as much of you. So remember, you can negotiate distance to screen with your client. You know, I can be here versus there. If you're on a chair like I am, you know, I can roll back and maybe sort of show more of myself. And, you know, it's often really helpful to sort of see what that feels like for your client. And so it's really getting used to a new space. Make sure, you know, that they know what stands out for them, as some of you have said. I think, you know, in a very basic level, make sure how your camera is positioned. You know, I think a lot of you have got it exactly right. At the eye height, the lighting is fine. It's not interfering. It isn't behind you. You're not seeing half of your screen or up your nostrils or just half of your head. So I think those are basic hygiene things. But I think there's something about distancing that, you know, as Gestaltists, we know how to do and we experiment with, and it is certainly worth doing in that space. So, but I think more important often is not just the perception of us on screen, but, you know, I really spend a lot of time familiarizing myself with their environment. And I visualize their room. Sometimes they mention an object, you know, so I know that it's there. What's in front of them. I've got a client where I say, you know, what you're seeing from outside your window, because I know that his screen sort of sits outside the window and he's on the ground floor and he can see people passing, or if it's sunny. So how's it for him to be sitting in that room at that moment? And that's again part of sharing, you know, creating that shared space. I think the other obvious thing worth saying is who else is in the room, because sometimes you say to people, actually, can you go to a quiet and uninterrupted place? And we find out that they're at the corner of their TV room with the children watching or the cats there. And so, you know, how would it be to ask your, you know, if your client is on a tablet or a laptop, to sort of switch it to sort of show you their room as well? And they might be curious about, where am I positioned in my house compared to when they came to me? Am I on the first floor or the ground floor? Can they hear anything in my background? One supervisor was saying, one of the clients kept saying there was some sort of noise. You know, what is it? So spend some time familiarizing yourself with that. And that building this shared space could be a good routine, almost a ritual, to have at the start of an online session. You know, it's almost like the question is, tell me how it is to be where you are today. And then sort of take it from there and sort of just allow for the online element to sort of be more of a shared connection or shared experience. And really my last comment regarding the situation lens is, as much as we try, we can't control our our shared space when we're online. So maybe there's something important about letting go of the expectation to control it. There will be interruptions, technology, the front door will go, they'd want to answer their to get their mail or whatever it is. I think the key thing here is how can we, with our clients, build a sort of ability to move in and out of attending to the online dimension seamlessly. And I guess that's part of the resilience that we want to start building in our clients and in ourselves as well. So I'm just going to pause here for a moment, just see if there's any comments or
Miss Vivica?
Vivica, sorry,
What
yes,
was that?
I unmuted you. I think I muted her. Yes. No, I can't.
okay. Sorry, you're trying to unmute Vivica?
Yeah, but I can't.
Okay. Oh, I can't either. She must be unmuted from you.
But
Yeah.
I've already said what I wanted to say.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's fine.
Can I make a comment?
Sure. Who's that?
Okay, Melinda.
Hi, Melinda.
Hi. I just have been thinking quite a lot as I'm listening to you, and definitely finding this a very new experience, like Zoom. Loving parts of it, but I think I'm sort of with the idea that it can be exhausting. Lots of Zoom meetings, and what is it about that? And sometimes I prefer telephone because I find it less distracting. Maybe it is about not needing to know what is behind the person, what books are they reading. I'm reading books on presence. But so for me, I was thinking face-to-face, online, Zoom, telephone, that certain things are filtered out, what we feel, what we see.
Yes.
And face-to-face, we can't constantly report and track what is going on.
Sure.
You go into the office, there's cars on the road, it's a new experience. Hello,
Yes.
how are you?
Yes.
So something about different feelings and visuals are filtered out depending on what medium you're using.
Sure.
And how, in a way, I think that's sort of important.
Yes.
Like, it's impossible to experience everything.
Absolutely.
Whether it's face-to-face or
Yes.
whether it's
Yes.
online or
Yes.
Zoom. So that's what that was an awareness.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Melinda. And so I think someone else asked, do people feel that you'll be intruding by asking them to show their place? And I guess this is something that you negotiate, is like, how would it be, I'm curious, how would it be to show me some more of your space? And sometimes it's appropriate, sometimes it's not. It's up to you to sort of negotiate that. Yes, any others before we carry on? Okay. So,
Say something?
yeah, sorry, who's that?
Yeah. I don't know how this works, but okay, I just wanted, in regards to this with the background, I was just thinking this, that the system that I use, I can actually make the background blurry.
Blurry, yes.
Yeah, so it's only me.
Sure.
And like it actually takes what is in the foreground and make that very clear and make the rest blurry.
Yes.
And I usually use that when I have a client.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
In this, my intention was not to disturb by looking at the books behind me or having a lot of other disturbances coming in, but really somehow I was imagining that I would be more like present and more be like really there for the client, because it was only me they had to somehow take notice
Contend with, yes. And that will leave them with some questions, because of course, we could all put a bit of a virtual background on. I could sort of show myself in the field of bluebells. Mm-hmm. And that will also be experienced by your client in a certain way. Is it about not showing them, and how will they feel then around not perhaps being able to do the same? But I think more important about than just what you see, it's like, how is it for them, for example, to be having this connection with you, sitting where they are sitting, perhaps at a desk that they spent all day long with, or in a bedroom where they've had their last argument with their partner. And I guess this is part of also what you're exploring, their positioning, you know, in that moment, in that space as they speak to you. Yeah. Okay. So thank you. I think we're sort of looking at time, and Helena, I'm wondering whether you want to sort of take it from here for the next sort of part.
Yes, sure. And I'm trying just to connect it to what we've been talking about, but really I'm thinking of all this, of some have raised I'm feeling more tired, and there is a different input in terms of information that we're getting. And really how, and someone asked here on the chat, do you want to say something about what contacting is? And if we really look at what contacting is, it means to be in touch with. And although we're now working on a screen, we're still being in touching and being touched by the other. However, it will be and will feel differently. So we are getting a less or different kind of sensory information. And for myself, when I work with my clients, I use a lot of silence. And I think we all do more of that when we're with someone than we're actually when we're with the screen. We're picking up on so much information around us all the time that makes silence maybe feel more thick, more dense when we're with someone in another way than when we're on the screen. So I think there can be a tendency in trying to fill the space more with words, with interventions, and not pause and let ourselves feel ourselves and the other. And like how we feel ourselves is also how we move. And in front of the screen, we will move differently. It's like, can be a way of, I'm not sure if you recognize this, but certainly for me, that I can feel myself narrowing and moving forward more, for example. And as I'm doing that, I might lose a sense of ground, of where I'm sitting. And in here, I'm not sure if you're feeling me, I'm not feeling you. And then I might start to work more hard like this, in a way of trying to make a connection. So I think that is just one part. And also that we, like we said many times, that we forget that we also have a whole body that we can use, and that we can still move in the space that we have. And so I was thinking of inviting you to just do an experiment, and we will split you into dyads again, where we invite you to also feel yourself and be silent and with the other person. So I'm not sure, are they seeing me or?
They're not. Yes, they are seeing you. Do you want the slide, Helena?
Yeah, no, I think I'll show the experiment, actually.
Okay.
And in that, if you can, I'd invite you to, I mean, if you'd like to stand up, and you can right now also, if you want to join me in standing up, if you can, or if you want, you can remain sitting.
You might want to adjust your camera if you need to, just sort of make, yeah.
And I think it can be useful to also invite our clients to stand up and to stand up with us. And as you're standing or sitting, begin to also draw your attention a bit more towards yourself. And begin to notice how you're feeling yourself, and notice how you're feeling if you're sitting in the chair, to notice what you feel underneath you and behind you. And if you're standing, to notice your feet on the ground and how much you can allow yourself to feel held by the ground. So just notice yourself like this. And also, if you often, there's like working a lot hard with our eyes when we're working on the screen. So can you let yourself just relax your eyes, as if feeling the back of your body more and feeling the weight of your eyes. And just pause and feel yourself. And then slowly and gradually begin to open your eyes. And as you're doing that, if you can do it in such a way that you more let the screen come to you, so you're not working so hard and trying to look out, to reach out. And then in the diets, to begin to first like find yourself. So to really find yourself and how you're connected to what's underneath you and behind you, and bring your attention more towards your physical body. And then one of you start with just making a gesture. Just a simple gesture. It can be big or small. So if I might just do a gesture like this. And then I bring it back to myself. And the other person, you just let yourself feel this first. So I'm doing this gesture. You let yourself feel it. And then you respond to the gesture. And I pause and just feel you. And then again, as the first person who started, I respond with how I feel in response to your gesture, and then I bring it back to me. Then the other person starts and we repeat it. And afterwards you sit down and process. But to slow down for a bit and just to notice how we're still feeling the other person move and how we are responding to their movements. That is the suggestion for
Thank you.
the experiment.
And Helena, for those people that can't stand up in their room,
Stand up. And if one of you wants to stand up and one wants to sit, you experiment with that and feel what that is like. So you can also do it sitting. The importance is, I think, of doing something where we're feeling the movement of the other and how we're responding, and take a pause doing that so that we're not just jumping in with words. And if you want to, and if you want to use the space, I think that also helps in getting a sense of volume.
Okay.
So
we're going to...
we had a slide for the experiment. Maybe we could send that.
Yes. Okay. Let me try to see. So we'll show the slide. So it's agree who's A and B, find a gesture or movement, feel yourself doing it, pause, repeat, pause again, be still, and B is still and lets themselves receive the movement. And when A has finished, you take your time and let a movement or gesture emerge in response to your partner.
And really pause and then let the other person respond.
Yeah. Everyone clear? Okay, we'll send these instructions to the room. I'm going to do the magic again and try to sort of find some rooms for everyone. So here we go. We have, I think everyone's back.
So shall we just take some, to hear some of the comments and listen into what you discussed and what that was like for you?
Lovely. So shall we do the same as last time? And whoever wants to speak, just put your hand up and we will try to get to you. So how was this? What was the experience like? Okay, Aline, do you want to go ahead? You're unmuted.
Hello. For me, what was interesting is that when the other participant did the gesture, I wasn't sure how to interpret that. And I think culturally, when you do that, it could be, I'm reaching out to help you, or am I receiving your gift? Mm-hmm. I think, it's very very different interpretation and therefore emotion attached to that movement. So I'm curious about how we can how that's going to affect the relationship.
Yeah, of course. It can also be like that you're already having an idea of what the gesture means. And it can also be that we let ourselves feel how that gesture feels, how it's touching us, how I'm moving in response to you if you're making that gesture. Do I feel myself moving towards or away from you? And then maybe share from there how I'm being impacted by the gesture rather than having an idea of what it means.
So really lean into the co-creation is what you're also saying. Wonderful. Thank you, Aline. I think Zebib, you wanted to say something? Hello?
No.
No, okay. Ula?
No.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, hello.
Yes, so it was a beautiful exercise. Thank you very much for this. I just realized how little we need to feel connected and to feel close. I've never seen this person before, but it didn't take long and we established a connection. As we debriefed, we found out it was mutual. So, and I could literally feel the sensations on my body. Like where she was touching herself, I had the tingling sensations, and that was an interesting experience I didn't have before.
Wonderful.
So something happened there.
Yeah. A lovely example of self and other great connection.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ula?
I ended up in a trio, so that was also quite an interesting experience, and it was incredibly playful. And I'm like, of course it can be playful. I find myself being in my head a lot on Zoom, and I miss the playfulness. I miss the. We ended up reaching hands towards each other. And that was really awesome, and thank you for. It's such a simple thing, but it's this permission to be playful and just what I really love about. I wanted to say Gestalt, but yeah, I do, and I miss that. I miss that as well.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Find those aspects again, also here, not just let the technology decide what's possible to do and not.
Fantastic. Great. So bringing more of yourself, and the experiment and daring, which is wonderful. So last comment from Anna. Anna Thodin, yes?
Yeah, well, it's interesting to hear your comments. We both had got stuck, I think, a little bit in this, so what are we supposed to do and what is the movement meaning?
Yeah.
And at the same time, our bodies reacted in a way and opened up. So, and I felt as though those two things were happening simultaneously.
Yes.
The mind searching a little bit for the social context for this.
Yes. Wonderful.
The body both feeling and then almost immediately responding. And for us, it was opening up movements. And then we just ended up, continuing to open up the body. And all of a sudden, so that was interesting to notice that split as well.
Fantastic.
And just how you're talking about that now, and you say you were opening up, and to sometimes use that kind of vocabulary with our clients of what am I noticing, what qualities, rather than begin to label. I think we need to give more sensory, like words, as we're working through this media too.
Wonderful. We've got some lovely comments coming up. That Alison saying he works with someone she knows and hasn't seen for ages, felt the missing of him. Lovely. And how much I miss being in the room with my clients. Great. I'm really aware, Helena, we've got about 9 minutes or so. So I'm wondering if people have any comments or questions that they'd like to make about you know, what they might be taking away, or about just anything we've covered this afternoon.
I like to say that I see quite a number of familiar faces, and welcome everyone who I can recognize. It feels really good to feel connected in silence. Yeah. And I really like the combination of movement and of co-creation, and yet I think something very intimate within myself, staying with my experience in my room. It's quite separated also, or some type of, I sense some type of separation within virtuality too. Yes. And connection. So the mixture, the beauty of balancing both.
Of both. Thank you, Carolina. Absolutely. More? How much has this encouraged you to perhaps be more experimental, more experiential with Zoom?
I've found it fascinating myself. I've learned a lot this afternoon about working online, the importance of perhaps silence, but also distancing. You know, the distance from the camera has really struck home with me today, and how the body sits, and how that would affect the client. But yeah, I've had a lot to think about, and thank you for that. You brought up issues that perhaps I've taken for granted and not really thought beyond. But this is why I'm here in the first place, to do that. So very interesting.
Thank you.
Hope there are more.
Thank you. Others? I think we've got lovely. So more lovely comments that I think I'll leave you to read. I think just be more daring is really where, you know, want to sort of say as a challenge, but also hopefully some support for you to sort of try things out. And often our clients will react in different ways. So we might actually have, you know, more intense, or our clients might go in different directions through this medium. You know, if we go back to our sense of, as Gestaltists, we self in context. And so perhaps being in their bedroom, they're able to bring an aspect of themselves that they would struggle to bring online. And also to respond to some previous comments around the video and the phone being better, I would sort of put all of what we've said within an online sort of a frame, because there's nothing that would stop us sort of doing on the phone sort of experiments as well. And in fact, some of our clients might even prefer not to be in a visual medium, or might feel very disrupted or distracted by seeing their own image actually on the screen. So let's play with that, experiment with that, and
acknowledge it, I think, because if we're uncomfortable, I mean, there are aspects with this medium that they are uncomfortable with.
Absolutely.
Or, yeah, disconnected, and to acknowledge that and work with it, I think.
Absolutely. No, I think that's true.
Can I make a comment?
Please, Melinda.
Okay. Just to say, just briefly reflecting with Johan and Ulla, I noticed it really helped, Helena, that you demonstrated something for us, because Johan and I, experimented a bit with that, and how wonderful that was. And I felt that definitely made me think I could do more with Zoom, but being able to have a demonstration and then experiment with colleagues and other Gestaltists, I think that has made quite a big difference. Thank you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Lovely.
Hi, Helena. Could I just ask something as well?
Yeah.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm just wondering, with the silence, I've really enjoyed it. I'm not Gestaltist, I'm an integrative trainee, but I've really, really enjoyed it. I think it's amazing. It's really sort of helped me kind of explore that body movement and relationalism on screen. But I'm just wondering, with the silence, my fear is that the disconnection with the client, that they might just kind of like, I don't know where they are when they're silent and they're not in the room physically with me. And I do find myself babbling a lot to keep the connection. I'm wondering how to kind of mitigate against that loss of potential disassociation, perhaps.
Well, as I briefly, but that are beginning to feel yourself and notice that anxiety, maybe you can also name that and with them and invite them to also feel themselves. And when you don't feel connected, maybe they don't. So it can be something of asking about that. And what if we stay silent now? Or what if we explore that? And when you did that, you just need a moment to pause and feel that gesture or whatever they do. And so you can also name what you're doing. That's a way of making a bridge, I think.
Yeah. And I guess, Philip, as well, it's like, what's a concern about the silence? Is a concern that you don't know, or is a concern about the risk that the client might be dissociating or you kind of losing touch? And I guess, we need to calibrate this to the risk issues that we have with each individual client. And I would say, for example, if you are doing something online and you have a client that dissociates, sort of just remind them not to shut their eyes as well, because then that's another sensory input that you can't sort of access them. Or if they're very dissociative, then you need to ask, do you need a co-therapist or someone that you can call if anything sort of happens? That then you can't reach them, someone that's in the same house. So I think there are risk issues, of course, but there are risks, with very vulnerable clients. But I think you bring up something that for all of us, when there's a silence, we feel we need to sort of jump in. And I think that's something for us to sort of appreciate, that there is connection in the no words as well.
Yeah, okay. I'll try. Thank you.
I'm aware we're at time. Helena, do you want to say anything before we end?
Oh, no, thank you for joining us in this experiment, that I'd like to say.
Yes, thank you. Thank you from me too. And, any feedback you have for us or any comments, just leave them in the group chat. And I hope you all go well and stay safe and healthy as well.